All right, happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the Hangout series, Sunday edition, special Sunday edition. Welcome to the show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the Hangout series. How has your Sunday been? Happy Sunday to everybody. Churches are open across the country now, so it means people can now go in to worship. I hope your worship is safe. Not just going to worship, but making sure you're worshiping safe and keeping the social distance and what have you. But I hope everybody is fine. Yes. So I promised everybody yesterday that today we'll be having a very important discussion on River State beyond COVID-19. So basically, how can we think of a better River State after COVID? Whether we like it or not, COVID coronavirus has changed how we used to live our life before now. So if we don't start to plan and begin to share ideas along the line of how we can grow the state and the country at large beyond COVID-19, then I am sorry. After COVID, things might just remain the same. So today, this conversation is very important. If you missed yesterday's episode, please go and watch it. It's right on my YouTube channel. You can find me on YouTube, Wisdom Chapp-Jumbo. And as you watch, please subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and also subscribe. We talked about education and challenges of having a higher degree or higher qualification in Nigeria. Okay, so this time around, we'll be talking about River State beyond COVID. If you agree with me, COVID has disrupted and changed our way of life. And as a people, and as a state, and as a country, if we don't begin to think innovatively how we can nurture some ideas on growing our state beyond COVID and implementing some strategies that have caused a disruption in our way of life. A friend of mine will say that, look, if anybody is thinking to go back to being normal, nothing is ever going to be normal again. Why I wish we will have this conversation in a broader way, in a national way, I want to try to bring it down a little to our state, River State, if you're a River State, and look at what is happening now, and look at some of the disruptions that have happened, and how we can do this differently. That's my own focus. We'll look at so many sectors in the state and the disruption that has happened and the ideas we can sort of put together for a better River State. Okay, this is why the Hangout series is here. My guest today is Mr. Pius Ile, and he is a former technical assistant to the special advisor on intergovernmental affairs in River State, and he's a private public governance strategist. He has come with a lot of wealth of knowledge to share with us today as we talk about this topic. So he'll be telling us a lot about himself and sharing more information about himself for us. So if you're watching, please try and share this video, share it across board, share it on your timeline, share it on your various groups. Let us, boost the conversation. And if you're watching from my YouTube channel right now, please try and subscribe to my channel as you're watching. Okay, so let me have my guest up so that we can start the conversation for today. Happy Sunday, sir. You're live. Can you hear me?
Hi, Wisdom. I can hear you.
Oh, all right, great. So welcome to the show. You're live now.
Okay, thank you so much. It's
All
nice.
right. Yes. Nice to see you. You have that's gone dark a little. Can't see your face clearly again. Oh. Okay, it's better now.
I hope you can.
Yeah, it's better now. It's better now. Okay. So we're about to kick off the conversation now, and we're discussing River State beyond COVID. And the reason why I love this topic, if you can hear me, The reason why I love this topic we're about to discuss today is reason being that there are a lot of ideas we can begin to talk about that will build better for River State, that will make River State recover better after the COVID-19. And it's for me, it is better we start to plan and have those ideas on ground ahead of time. That's why I love this conversation. It's for a new River State after COVID, whether we like it or not. What used to be normal before will never be normal again. So we are sort of going into a new normal. So welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right. So before we start, I'd like my guests to talk about themselves a little. Uh, we call from what I know, from what I know, you are a former technical assistant to the special advisor on intergovernmental affairs. And you have other areas of expertise which you also currently work on. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your background. My viewers would like to know.
Okay, I am an alumni of the University of Nottingham. I
Okay.
studied mechanical engineering.
Okay.
I've had a bit of experience both in public life and in private life in terms
Okay.
of public private practice.
Okay.
Worked for some engineering and environmental based companies,
Hmm.
and uh, presently I do more of consulting.
Okay.
So for me, I'm
That's all.
quite passionate about real estate.
All right. Go on. Go on. Yeah, I can hear you.
And looking at the topic Rivers Beyond COVID-19, I think it's going to be an interesting one. So I
Mhm.
look forward to having a very fruitful conversation with you.
All right. Great to meet you again. So let's just go straight into the conversation. And my first question, let us start on a very lighter note. Would be, what would you say is your assessment of governance right now in River State?
Well, the current actors in the state are doing their best. The current actors in the state are doing their best. But for me, I would say it's not good enough
Hmm.
because, first of all, the issue on politics in River State is a little bit toxic.
Hmm.
Most people don't look at the main issues on ground because if we are talking about governance, issue on governance, then we look at how the government really is engaging the people who development should be for. Most of the development in the state is not really done with due consultation of the real stakeholders. Sometimes you see projects that are just conceived by government and is straight away implemented. So for me,
Hmm.
I would say that there should be more of a proper stakeholder engagement to
Okay.
check if most of the projects that are being put in by government reflects exactly the wishes of the electorate.
Hmm. Okay. Proper engagement to check on projects to see if it reflects what the people really want, and I think that makes a lot of sense. But we'll go into the issue of those projects and all of that along our conversation. But I also would like to ask you, how would you say we have managed the COVID-19 pandemic in the state so far? It's been a few months now, and the economy and activities in the state has begun to open up. But how would you say we have managed it so far? Have we done well enough?
Well, we've done our best. The COVID-19 pandemic. Hello,
I can hear you. Go on, please.
the COVID-19 pandemic. We're not used to it. It's something quite new to us.
Mm,
Judging from the way the government was able to manage the situation, well, I give kudos to them. At least we are seeing a decline now in terms of transmission. So I
mm,
think the government the people are also doing a good job in order to to check the spread of the virus.
But it seems like public awareness is still a bit low because some people still don't wear the masks. Some people feel that COVID is still not real. Some people think we are faking it. What has been your experience going out and moving around town?
Okay, well, a lot of people wear the mask, but then the issue of wearing the mask is more of, it seems like they don't see the health implication of using a mask.
Mm.
So when you check issue on compliance, the compliance level, let's say, is about 60%, which for
Okay.
me I think is a bit,
I'm with you. I'm with you.
is,
Go on.
yes, is a little bit fine, considering that a lot of people believe that the virus is not in existence, and a lot of people see it as an instrument of government to be able to manipulate people.
Mm. Well, you can't blame them too. We hardly don't trust government in this side of the world, so everything seems to be suspicious, no matter how how true it is. I think it's one of the issues too. But I've not had good experience moving around. It's been worrisome how we just take these things for granted. But anyways, so now let's go into the issue of River State beyond COVID. Um, as we all know, disruption has hit every part of the sectors, every part of the sectors of the country and the economy in itself, and we have not been performing better in a very long time. But something struck me when I read this article from the former Commissioner for Information, Austin Tam George, and he tried to share some steps on how we can build better and get back, recover better after the pandemic. He sort of tried to look at what the state will look like after the pandemic. So and he hit some very interesting. He focused on very very interesting part of that his article, and he talks about investment in education, focus in agriculture, health and wellness, and rural development and leadership. And I like the fact that he picked out these things. So, do you think, or what do you think will stick with us the most, generally as a people, after this pandemic?
Well, the issue of social distancing.
Yes.
If you go to what you go to the eatery, you go everywhere, even in the banks,
Mm,
there is a certain protocol that ensures that you limit the interaction of individuals. So the concept of social distancing, I think, is going to
mm-hmm.
stick with us.
Okay.
But the fear is that the social distancing should not contribute to social distance.
No, say that again. I didn't get that. Say it again.
I said we must be careful to ensure that social distancing does not contribute to social distance.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. 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 I like that. I like that. All right. So, but now education. I've been talking about education for a while on the show, and education I see is one of the main parts that has been greatly affected, by the pandemic in many ways. Our universities are shut down. Just recently, they've opened the schools for the finishing students in primary and secondary, so that they can write their exams. But education after the pandemic, I wonder what it will look like. And in that message, in that article, Mr. Tam George is saying we should convey an education and innovation summit after the pandemic to be able to rethink what next for our education. And he said the purpose of this should be, to work out modalities for a comprehensive overhaul of the state educational curriculum. What do you think about this idea? Post COVID, what do you think education will look like for us?
Well, I think it's a very novel idea.
Hello, can you hear me? Go on, we can hear you.
The idea of convening an education and innovation summit is a novel one because we need to begin to rethink what knowledge is useful to us as a state at the point. That's the reason why we need to now begin to examine our curriculum. Are the students actually gaining the skills they actually need? Are the teachers conveying the knowledge that is going to be useful to our society? Now, because we have a new normal in place, so at the end of the day, we have to rethink our learning process.
Hmm. But many people will argue that we have had a lot of these conferences and meetings on education, but for some reason we are not making headway with it. We are still around the circle on issues around education, and doesn't look like that will go away. But post COVID, do you think we should concentrate on for education?
For education, we should look at building a skill-based system, One, the issue on ICT needs to be taken
Okay,
very seriously because
okay.
if you look at the issue of transaction in terms of business and in terms of learning, now you see most schools use the Zoom application to be able to
Mm-hmm.
convey knowledge from the teachers to the students. What it means is that this is going to stay with us for a while.
Okay.
So issue on advancement in terms of retooling, in terms of equipping students to be targeted more in the area of ICT.
Hmm. Okay. The area of ICT. I agree, because when I spoke to some of the student leaders, I see that ICT is a big issue too, and it's reason why they can't even write exams virtually, even after staying home for months on lockdown. But we keep playing lip service to some of these things over time. Uh, what practically can we do?
Okay, first of all, you look at the reason why most of the summits or conference dialogues or whatever platform that have been instituted by government in the past,
Mm,
the reason why they have failed is because there is that lack of political will. When I mean
okay,
political will, it means the will of government to ensure that certain policies and programs and projects of government is being brought into realization, and they do all that they can do to ensure that they become reality.
political will. Hmm. Okay. I see the government is also doing a lot of remodeling of our schools across the state. But I'm looking at post COVID, how those schools will look like for the students when they get back. Okay, but let's move a little away from that. We cannot overemphasize the fact that education is important, and for me, I'm very interested to see what that sector will look like post COVID, especially for River State. I don't know what policies are on ground currently, but I'm curious to see what education really will look like for us, especially our curriculums, and how we can make a shift on it to fit in. What the new normal will look like for us. Okay, but let me move a little bit to agriculture. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
All right. River State has, some of the best soil patterns and wetlands across the country. But do you think we pay enough attention to agriculture?
No, we are not paying enough attention to agriculture. If you examine the impact of the lockdown threw a lot of challenges to us as a society. You could look at occasionally you see the hike in the prices of food because most of the food we consume we don't produce here.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, it leads to one, either shortage in food supply because most of the borders are closed. Now, what we need to do as a state is to see how we can effectively develop ourselves in terms of having massive investments in the area of agriculture. We have cassava. I hear the government is trying to do something currently in the area of cassava production. And in terms of processing too, which is also very important. But then again, when you look at the issue on soil in River State, the issue of production in terms of the number of crops we produce is not much. Now, at the end of the day, you see things like lack of access to finance by those who are real, as in by the real farmers. Okay?
Yes,
So
I can hear
what
you.
it means is that they to set up a system or a mechanism that would help farmers who are already in the business of farming to look into how we can increase their production. Two, we need to also look at the issue of processing and the issue of storage. So
Okay.
these are the challenges we need to begin to rethink.
But why do you think subsequent governments don't give agriculture enough attention? Is it they don't see the potential for it for economic growth?
A
Or,
lot of
or
a lot of people have a different understanding about the issue of agriculture because most people feel that state is an oil state, and the concentration seems to be in the oil and gas sector. But it's in recent time we realize that food is really important.
okay, can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. On agriculture, I'm most concerned about food security for all of us post COVID. I think COVID-19 showed us that if we don't save enough for the rainy time, there might be hunger. And COVID has just given us, some opportunity to rethink, what we want to do with agriculture. And we shouldn't have the best soil and wetlands in the country, and then we are not making good use of it. It just seems like everybody's focus is on our oil and gas, and nobody is seeing how far we can build agriculture, even as a way of empowerment for young people. But is there a way we can encourage more young people to go into agriculture? Maybe.
Yes, we can encourage a lot of people by giving them access to finance. For example, if you look at the Malaysian society,
Yeah.
Malaysian society is practically known for palm oil. But then when you look at history, you realize that most of the seedlings and most of the species of the one they have in Malaysia was taken away from River State. So it tells you that there's a whole lot of neglect in terms of our capacity, resource capacity.
Okay.
There's a whole lot of neglect, the real issues that can bring about rapid transformation in our economy. So one, young people need to be given a different orientation about agriculture. First of all, if a society doesn't have good security in terms of food, then
Hello, can you hear me? Hello. Okay, I lost him a bit there, so um, let's try to get him back on. So if you're just joining, this is the Hangout series, and we have been trying to discuss River State beyond COVID. We've been trying to address the issue of education and agriculture, and how these things can, can work better for us post COVID. The reason why we've started talking about post COVID is because that will be the new normal and to be the new life for us. So how can we learn from what has happened during this COVID period to build better post COVID? And my guest, Mr. Pius Ile, has been trying to help us talk about these things. We're just talking about agriculture now, and how we can encourage more young people to go into agriculture. Welcome back. Hello.
hello, Wisdom, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted you to land with your thoughts. You were saying something before you went off.
Okay, I'm saying that we should have more access to finance.
Okay.
We should also be able to talk to people, young people, most importantly, about agriculture. Because a lot of people feel that farming is for those in the rural settlement.
Hmm.
So we also need to take care of some form of belief and ideas that people have about the issue of farming and basically agriculture generally. So there needs to
Will
be a class shift, a kind of mindset shift in
will
terms
will
of
the
what
will the government giving sort of grants and loans help young people go into agriculture?
I didn't get your question.
I said, will the government giving grants and loans to young people, will it help them go into agriculture? Would that be a good place to start?
That's a good place to start because one, finance is really a major challenge. When you look at the level of unemployment in the states, sometimes you look at when job offers are being made, some openings, you look at the number of people who apply for jobs with even little pay.
Hmm.
So a lot of people need that access to capital to be able to advance their business in terms of their agribusiness.
Okay. Um, just to also move faster and add to what we're talking about, you mentioned something on rural and urban areas for agriculture and farming, but I also want to move a little bit to development and infrastructure development. Um, it seems like our focus over the years in the area of infrastructural development has been focused a lot on just Port Harcourt and Obiakpor local government. I don't know if you think there is a long time benefit for this, or we are simply somehow shortchanging other areas that would have been developed to help us over time. So my question is focusing a lot on Port Harcourt and Obiakpor. Do you think there's a strategy to it that you feel can work better over time?
Well, I'm not a fan of over concentration of developmental projects in Port Harcourt and Obiakpor. The reason is that over time the city is getting congested. We need to be able to diversify our efforts diversify
Yeah.
developmental projects into other satellite areas, such as you have areas like Omok, you have areas like Oyibo, you have areas like Degema, you have areas like Bori. The government needs to concentrate on building new satellite cities. This will help River State on the longer term.
Hmm.
Because when you look at those other economies, those economies are so building up. So there needs to be some form of stimulation of those economies in those areas to ensure that there will be even development in the state.
But somehow we keep focusing on just Port Harcourt and Obiako. And I've always been thinking maybe our leaders feel like if these two places are striving, other areas will be touched one way or the other. I don't know if I've tried to think if there's something behind it, because currently we have over five flyovers across Port Harcourt to Obiako and all the areas, and I'm thinking, but we have some other projects in other areas that we can focus on. So, but what do you think we can think or do better ahead post COVID for River State in terms of infrastructural development?
Okay, now wisdom. I know you are based in Lagos, right?
Yeah.
And currently you see that the facilities in Lagos, in terms of the port facilities, is a major
Mm.
challenge at the moment.
Yes.
Now, River State can to look into improving the facilities we have, such as road facilities, because if the port in Onne is developed properly and other facilities that would enhance the port operation, you realize that we have a lot of opportunities to create for the youths who are largely unemployed.
Mm.
And again, we are going to be shifting some focus from Lagos to River State, because when you look at the waterways in River State, you know that Rivers is blessed truly by God. So we have not been able to maximize our assets. How are we using our advantage to ensure that we create a society that generations after now will be proud of the fact that they come from River State?
Okay. I hope they are listening and they are watching, and they can take some of these ideas, for infrastructural development. I know the governor is working on a lot of projects. For me personally, I'll be happy if we can spread our wings to other areas and see how we can also develop other areas. Because when everybody concentrates, when the whole focus is on Port Harcourt, one day Port Harcourt will turn to the city of Lagos, where everybody wants to come, and there will be no space for all of us to stay at a time. So that would be my only humble appeal to government on that. But post-COVID era, I know, I see we see the ship that recently landed in on airport, and post-COVID,
Yes,
I'm sort of excited that we'll be seeing more of that, because it is clear that Lagos cannot handle all the pressure that will be coming. Do you see any opportunity in that?
there are a lot of opportunities. There are a lot of opportunities for River State, because if, for example, we show the world, show the country that look, the facilities in River State better compared to the one in Lagos, then it's very obvious that certain opportunities will be redirected to River State.
Hmm.
So for me, I feel that the that came to Onne is an opportunity that we need to begin to explore, because a lot of opportunities for people who are into the business of logistics. So I think it's high time the state looks inward. Let us see how to improve our capacity.
Hmm.
to ensure that we are well positioned to manage the situation that God has given to us.
I hope they hear. I hope they hear, and I'm praying that they hear. All right. Just before we sort of round off very soon, in the next 5 minutes, please, viewers, if you have questions, you can drop, so I can ask our guests, uh, for us to get some answers for it. Okay, so let's talk on the most important one, the big fish in the room, and that's leadership. And you mentioned before on the issue of political will and our toxic politics in the state. That toxic policies in the state has gone on for a very long time, and it sort of worries me a lot, especially when it comes to leadership. But how do we get out of this for a better future for River State, especially looking at how the COVID-19 has changed the landscape of everything? I mean, this period seems like we now know who is our leader and who is leading, and who is just bearing a title. How the situation has been managed and everything goes beyond which political party you have been on. So, but post COVID, what do you think should happen to our politics and leadership? What sort of new things should we inject, into our politics and leadership?
Okay, wisdom, you agree with me that in River State we need more of entrepreneurs than politicians. The where we have more politicians than entrepreneurs is a big issue. First of all, even in terms of practice of politics, you look at opposition in River State. To me, I don't see any constructive opposition in River State. The opposition parties in the state are not even offering themselves as a good alternative, which they should naturally be. Now, the point is, if we go on building a culture of hate among the minds of our followers who look up to us, then we have a serious situation on our hands. River State has largely not paid attention to the area of grooming good leaders. For example, if we have a visionary leadership in our state, we should be able to anticipate situations before they happen. Now we are talking about River State beyond COVID-19. Look at the health situation. What health facilities do we have on ground? Now, in terms of some institutions or organizations that produce medical equipment, do we have any in River State? The syringe factory in River State, is it operational? These are the things you need to look at. Now, do we have good insurance for the people of River State? These are critical issues that we need to attend to. So, leadership, everything rises and falls on leadership. That is why we need to begin to create a new culture of raising entrepreneurs. We need to have some form of platform where successful entrepreneurs will meet with those who wish to be like them. And that platform will also help those who are upcoming entrepreneurs to locate capacity, to locate finance that they need to be able to grow. Now, in the drug production, do we have any drugs being produced here in River State? So we need to begin to look into these critical things. Because if, for example, we have another pandemic on our hands, can we be able to cope? These are critical questions we need to ask ourselves. So we need to begin to take decisions that will be able to protect our future. So we need to begin to look at areas where we are not doing well. For example, the issue on waste management.
Okay.
That's an area that brings a lot of revenue for us. Now we need to begin to look into the areas of setting up modular refineries to be able to produce oil and gas products. Because if you look at the capacity of the refineries we have here in Port Harcourt, it's not really functioning at the optimal capacity. So having a modular refinery offers a whole lot of opportunity to us in Rivers State. Now, we also need to also develop a framework for engaging with the federal government and other international based agencies to help Rivers people to tap into opportunities that the COVID-19 pandemic has brought to us. For example, you hear things like the economic stimulus package of the federal government. How do we ensure that our people here in Rivers State take hold of such opportunity? We need to begin to look at issue of digitalization of government processes, such as the issue of revenue and issue on permits. So these are also areas where we need to also look into. We also need to be able to set up
Hello, are you there?
expenditure. Now, government is spending on the right things. Are we spending in a way that it protects our critical assets and infrastructure? So we need to look into a lot of things, because if you look at the issue of Zoom application, the Zoom application have been able to cut down expenditure of government in the area of travel. So we need to begin to look at innovative.
Go on, I can hear you. I was just saying yes to the Zoom application, cutting the cost of travel.
Okay, so when you look at it, you see that government needs to prioritize their expenditure, such as when you look at purchase of vehicles for government officials. We have a company that produces cars here in Nigeria, the Innocent Motors. Can't we have some synergy between the Rivers State government and such organization to see how we can be able to leverage on the capacity that they have by maybe saying, okay, why don't you set up a plant here in Rivers State and we are going to patronize you? So these are the areas we need to look into. Now, the issue of COVID-19 has also made people not to travel. A lot of people who were meant to go outside the country to study, most of them are still in Nigeria. Why don't we build institutions that people, world-class institutions that people will be proud to study? For me, I studied in the University of Nottingham, and I don't think it is difficult for the Rivers State government to replicate the same thing that the University of Nottingham has. We have capacity in terms of people, we have financial capacity. So if you look at the cost of building some flyovers, that's enough to kickstart a global university that will attract a lot of people into our state. So in that way, you promote tourism. So the idea, we need to begin to change the narrative in Rivers State. The times are changing. If we don't change with the time, then we have a great difficulty and darkness that looms, because the level of criminality is going to go really high.
All right, Mr. Pius, I have to now cut you there. It's been a nice one. We've had great ideas you have shared, but this is where we wrap up the show for today. And I hope that some of these ideas will something that the government can look into right ahead, because I'm really worried for young people, and especially for the educational sector itself is a great worry for me, and that's why I've been talking about it for a long time. But also that infrastructural development and what you have mentioned now, I think is also key. How because it's going to help us to build better, after the COVID itself. Let's stretch development to other areas of the state and not just centralize it to one place, or a particular part of the state. And I hope we can be able to do that. Thank you so much for coming on the show, but here is where we come to an end. I hope we can be able to monitor things and see how things will go from this point.
Thank you very much, Wisdom, for having me.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure speaking with you anytime.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, guys. This is where we wrap up the show. We have been able to share some very innovative ideas. If you missed the entire conversation, no worries. The video will still be available on my page and will also be available on my YouTube channel for a replay anytime you want. River State beyond COVID. What can we do? What are the ideas we can put forward, to build River State beyond COVID? Join me again next weekend as we continue on this conversation. I have more and more amazing guests to come on the program and to share their thoughts with us. Until then, this is the Hangout series. Have a lovely evening.